Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This is, come on brain. You're actually seeing this, not on the day I filmed it, you're seeing it several days later, and it's late in the day, and I've done a lot today. But basically I had to split a video in two, so this is part 4B of our start of season updates, and it's the rest of the pots. So it carries on the pots, pots and more pots themes, and all those sections were done in little sections, so it lends itself very nicely. They're not in any particular order, it doesn't matter what order they're in, so it lends itself nicely for me to just split it in two. And so let's get going with part 4B, the rest of the pots. Okay, here's the next little group. This lot live down there. So sort of we did top shelves and these are the lower shelves. This no longer belongs to me. It's effectively Miltonia flavescens. Very attractive blooming species. Healthy plant. So why did I get rid of it? Because it won't bloom for me. So let somebody else have a go. See what they can do with it. But I got a pot full of roots. Lots of growths on it. It's a healthy plant. Just it doesn't want to bloom. It needs a trick of some sort. I don't know whether it needs a dry period, more intense light, less light, more heat, less heat. I don't know. But I've tried many things and it won't bloom for me. Somebody else have a go. This is my, he says hastily racking his brains, Epidendrum. Very sad looking plant, but it's blooming again, and I think it's going to recover, but it's an unknown quantity. I still don't know why this went down, but it went down badly, lost many of its leaves, and I wouldn't like to say that got hit with the bright light on the grounds that epidendrums are often grown outside in people's gardens, obviously if you've got the right climate for the nighttime temperatures. But it's currently in bloom. These spikes aren't anywhere near as good as the previous lot, but it's blooming and it will carry on blooming for a very long time. What it needs to do is grow some stuff down from the base, you know, and get going again. It's trying. This little growth's come from the base, but badly stunted. This is in effect a kiki, but it's growing near the base. It looks like it's stopped growing as well. It's just not a happy plant. Reasons unknown. But the blooms look nice. Oh. So these long cane dendrobiums, when they're out, they have to come forward so as we can see them. And I'm forever ducking. Right, we now have a very sad looking Sharry baby that's got pale leaf syndrome, induced by too much light for a very long period last year. And I don't know whether this is going to recover properly ever again. It was never a good version of Sharry baby, I must admit, but at the moment it's growing. We've got a new growth coming up here, another little one starting there. Oh, there's another one in the middle of the plant coming up in the, whoops, leaves all over the camera. There's another one in the middle of the plant there. So it's got some new growths coming, but I don't know what they're going to do. But my version of Sharry baby has never been a good plant. It's never been a strong grower, it's never been vigorous, and it never has the sort of size spikes I see on other people's plants. So the next opportunity where I see a good one, I'm going to get it and replace that, because it's just not doing well. Never has done. Right, what have we got here then? This is this is my Odontoglossum. It would have an Oncidium title officially now, but it's effectively golden Rialto. Serious rescue plant, virtually lost. Its latest growth is not bad, not full size, but not too far off, and it's grown roots. So I'd class it as rescued, and I'm just patiently waiting for the next new growth now. So it's sort of okay, sort of. And the other one that lives on that shelf is one that There's another one that just went. It was growing okay, and then it just decided it wasn't. And an old bulb rotted, and it was attached to another one, and the joint looked very iffy. So I took that section of the plant just right off, leaving what was at the time a very small new growth. Since then, it's pushed out that one. So it's now growing well. This is a big, strong growth, and it's got active roots coming out the base as well. So it's going to be okay. Gorgeous blooms on that one. Right, so that's that shelf. That lot out the way. Ugh. This one lives as far away from the glass on that shelf as I can get it, because this is a lower light plant and likes to be cool. And it gets, those plants get the cooler air from the inlet fan when it's on. Ugh. Right, that's that shelf. On to the next one. Right, so this lot live in the this section down here. This one lives on the floor. This is a bit of a whoopee. I've had trouble with this plant since I got it. First of all, it stayed in its pot too long and it started losing roots. I repotted it, and it doesn't like root disturbance, and it was repotted at the wrong time, so it then lost even more roots. And this thing needs to stay hydrated. It must not go dry. And it did. As a consequence, quite a few of the bulbs started to desiccate. Well, they've plumped up a little bit, but they're not going to plump up any more. But what we've got on here is when it's not hydrating very well and it pushes up a new growth, gorgeous nice new bulb, yeah, but the leaves have got crinkles. It means it didn't have enough roots to keep it hydrated. And same over this side, the bulb there, crinkles on the leaves, yeah, but the latest new growth over here has got two shiny, clean, non-crinkled leaves at long last, which means it now has enough roots to support itself. That's all it needed, yeah? And now I mustn't lose them. Now over this side, on that big fat new growth with the crinkled leaves, or slightly crinkled leaves, we've got a nice big new growth coming. That will start roots in the not too distant future. They start as it grows, not when it's new. Tucked in behind it is a little nubbin of green that I don't think is going to grow. It's like a stalled eye, but very recently it started another one there, right on the edge of the pot. Yeah, so it's in growth mode. It's pushing up and maturing one growth that won't bloom now. If it's going to bloom, it blooms not far off that size. It starts to grow, and then as the top opens, the spike comes straight out. If it's going to bloom, you know quite quickly. If not, it progresses and produces two nice leaves and roots. Yeah, this new growth here is still yet to start its roots, and yet it's almost mature, but it will. So coming on, and after several years of messing about, it's growing reasonably well now, and it's well worth the effort because of the blooms. Oof. Right, that's that one on the floor. This is my, well, it's always been called Odontoglossum naevium. It's probably Oncidium now. This is growing on quite well at the moment. It's got several new growths. There's two in the middle of the plant, one mature. Oh, would you believe it? I just watered that and I didn't notice it's got a spike. It was hiding under that leaf, literally, following the line of that leaf and just sticking out the end. So we have a spike. I was going to say this one should bloom soon. Well, there you go. Good. Blooms on this are gorgeous. So I was going to say the most mature growth is the one in the middle of the plant, which is going to bloom first, and so it will. There's another new growth next to that one here. That's pushing on. This new growth here is pushing on. So that's three. They should all bloom. It's recovering basically from disturbance. Oh, actually there's another one here, four. It got disturbed to repot to get it out of the old media, and it took a while to get going again, but I mean it's got a pot full of roots now. So it's coming on nicely now. Again, that one lives on the floor, Odontoglossum, cool grower. Along with that Ceologyne, they both live down there, where they get the influx of cool air when we get some. Right, this thing does not grow well for me. It's probably because it's too... Now normally when I'm holding a dendrobium I say, oh, it's too cold in the winter for these. But this one is probably not cold enough. This is my xdelicatum, yet to bloom. There's nubbins on that cane that look perfectly capable of blooming. They're not going to do it now. That's a late winter, early spring bloomer. So, but they may push out next year. And then this one over here has got... It even started to look as though it was going to bloom and produced a spike that just then aborted. There's another nice nubbin on that cane as well. But at the moment there is no sign of life at the base. It's got a good pot full of roots. It's not short on roots. The old root section is very good. But no new growths yet. And bearing in mind they have to get to a reasonable size. So it's okay, it's just not growing as well as I thought it would. But it was bought as a single cane kiki. That was came from Sarah actually. She had quite a few of them at one of the shows and they weren't selling. So I got it cheap. Right, this, if it wasn't the fact that it belonged to Hannah, I'd have thrown it out. It's a phalaenopsis type that has nondescript white blooms that are just nothing special. The plant is not healthy. It's got mottled leaves, stripy leaves, it's not a happy bunny, and no sign of life at the base. I think it's got some roots. Yeah, I mean it's got roots. But next time I see Hannah, I shall say, is it okay if I dump that? It's not a healthy plant, and it's not going to be for a very, very, very long time. Because even if it grows 1 or 2 new growths this year, well, there is actually one new growth starting there, just. All these leaves are still going to be there for several years. I just don't want it. If I'm going to have some phalaenopsis type dendrobiums, I don't particularly want this one. Doesn't, you know, the blooms aren't good enough to warrant the space. Not really. They do last a long time. Right, we've got a couple more here. What have we got here then? What is this? Ah, this is the pieces of the Miltonia Sunset that we rescued and put in pure moss. Why did we rescue it? It rotted. So we rescued the 2 latest growths. So we ended up with 2 pseudo-bulbs and I think there were signs of new growth, but we had no roots. Well, we've got roots now. This new growth is producing roots, as is this one. So there's 2 single old bulb and 1 new growth pieces in there to grow on. And it'll be a while before that blooms again. It's not going to be blooming on these 2 latest new growths, and if it did I'd stop it. They're not strong enough. But the next one, the next new growth might be okay. It's that one. This is an unknown. I haven't got a clue what this is. Tag's gone. Whatever it is, it's incredibly loose in its pot, but it is growing. It's got a new growth here. Where's my camera? Keep forgetting that bit. New growth there, and another new growth here. It's got 3 new growths on it, and not a sign of a new root yet. And it needs them. I could probably, if I pick that up by the plant, it would come straight out of the pot. Yeah? It needs roots. But it's growing. 3 new growths on a fiddly little bit that size. But I haven't got a clue what it is. Not a clue. Could be one of the Miltonias, because I did have quite a few. Peter Comp or one of the summer something or others. I know it's not Summer Glory, because that one I watered and it's got a label. So that could be the other one, Summer Breeze perhaps. I don't know. One day we may find out. And then the other one that's living over there at the moment is my Hibiki, which I think we've already looked at, but I'd just like to see if I can get the camera in like there. I know it's going to go dark. Let me just see if I can get the label out. Right. In this area here, at the base of that, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new growths. Just there. Turn the plant a little bit. 1, 2, and this one pushing on nicely, 3. Turn the plant a bit more. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then in the middle of the plant, even more. Even more. I'd say there's a dozen new growths on that plant, at least. And if they push on to a reasonable size, that is going to really bulk up this plant. This is the largest cane on it, and that is nowhere near as big as Hibiki canes can grow. The previous plant I had that I lost, some sort of fungal infection on the leaves, they just dropped. But the canes on that one were half as big again, they were more like that long. So if these new growths do that, and then they bloom, because they're all going to be maturing around the same time, oh, absolute showstopper. But it's a way off that. It's still sitting with its you have to get the tag back in. I don't want to. I'd never forget what it is, but it's still got the original bloom it had when I bought it. Just the one. Anyway, that one's living here at the moment, where it gets a little bit more light than where it was, but not too much. Right, that's that bit. One section left, I would think. Okay, this is probably the last lot, but what I'm going to do is download off the doodah camera and see how much I've got, how much time I've used, and depending on that, I don't want this being ridiculously long, but there are a few little ones over here to my left on that top shelf that we haven't looked at. But let's get these done first. This is the other farmeri griffithianum cross that we peered into the glue mat the other day. Now this has got a serious problem with its leaves that may or may not have gone away, so it could be on borrowed time. The markings on the leaves have got everything you could possibly imagine. They've got spots, they've got rings, which is bad news, and they've got stripes, even worse news. But like we've discussed before, if you've got some sort of fungal attack on your leaves and you treat it, it's going to get worse before it gets better, because a lot of damage will have happened but not left marks yet. So even though you may kill that fungal attack, and the leaves carry on getting bad. But the sure sign that we may be winning is the last new growth has shiny clean leaves. All the rest of the leaves have got marks of some sort. The previous new growth isn't bad, so I'm having to go careful because there's spikes all over the place. That was the previous new growth. One badly marked leaf, one with a couple of little marks, and one not bad. And then the next one that followed on. Anyway, what this has got is 3 spikes. There's one hiding under there, one over here, and one in the middle of the flipping plant, which is there. And they're all about the same size and at the same point of development, so they will all be in bloom at the same time. And I thought there was a 4th. Perhaps I was imagining it. There's only 3 spikes on there because they hide. They'll tuck in under a leaf. So 3 spikes, they will all be in bloom together, and not the happiest of plants, but I'm hoping in like a couple of years' time these older leaves will probably drop, or the canes can be chopped, and they'll be replaced by newer ones. I don't know if I've actually got any new growths at the base yet. I don't see any. It's probably not going to do new growths until it's finished blooming now. But again, those blooms 10 to 12 days. Massive show, spectacle, and then gone. Don't last long at all. But that type of plant, the griffithianum, farmeri, those types, there's others, they can bloom 2 or even 3 times a year on a strong, healthy, well-grown plant. So they might be short-lived, but you can get them to go several times a year, rather than some that are short-lived and only bloom once, no matter what you do. So these live over here, on the next shelf down from they're underneath the cattleyas basically. Right, if you want to kill black hair dendrobiums, black hair types, dose them up with systemics. and spray stuff on them to kill scale. Firstly you get the scale, then you try and treat it, and the treatments kill the plant. So it's difficult. But this one is hanging in there. It hasn't dropped all its leaves yet, but they're not happy. It just objects to systemics and things of that ilk. But it hasn't lost them all, and there are green parts to the leaves, so it can still photosynthesize. And what I am pleased about is down at the base here is a stonking new growth just starting, because it's also at the base showing signs of new roots coming out. You probably won't be able to see it, but tucked in there are little tiny new roots forming, and there's some around this side. Because it hasn't got a very good root system, but there's signs of growth in the pot as well, on older parts of the root system. So it's sort of coming back, this one, and that is, the tag's gone, it's infundibulum crossed with lowii. Maybe. Probably, sort of. I own that plant with that name. Whether that's it or not, I don't know, because there's another one. This is what happens. Systemics, that's dropped every leaf bar that one, which is yellow. And the stupid thing, I think, is going to try and bloom under that leaf. Probably have to stop that. No sign of life at the base on this one, and that was its feeble attempt at a new growth. Just aborted completely. So that one's not growing. That's doing nothing. And that's the other one. It's got infundibulum in it, but one of them's crossed with lowii and the other one I can't remember. But there'll be pop-ups. As I say, I've got them in my notes, but the tags have gone. I should throw that away really, but like I've said many times, don't give up on a dendrobium. It may come back. But the one thing it won't ever get again is a systemic. We really don't like them. Either fungicides or insecticides. Now this is the other black hair type. There is another one lurking in here as well. I think it's mounted. But this one was from our show last year, from the guys from the Far East, Dendrobium Frosty Dawn. And again it objected, dumped most of its leaves, managed to keep a few on that cane, and is currently coming back into growth. So we've got a new growth here at the base, and around the other side of here we've got new roots coming, because this has got a very, very poor root system. So coming back into growth. So that's all three of my black hair type virtually lost. And in a harsher world they would have been lost because I'd have dumped them because of the state they were in. Right, I'm going to download the camera and I'll just be back to close or finish with the last few. Okay, I offloaded everything. It was far too much for a single video. So what this has now become is the end of part 4B, the second part. And I've added the last few plants in, so that's all the pots done now. So it was worth splitting it into two. Zygopetalum. Everybody loves looking at my zygos, because I'm sure people are wishing them to die just so that they join the set. I've got a whole set of dead Zygopetalums. Well, this one's not part of the set. This one, struggling though it is at least trying to come back to this world. And as zygos go, when they go downhill, and lots of people will have experienced this, they seem to be doing absolutely great, and normally not long after you repot them, down they go. And it's not obvious why necessarily. They had roots growing, healthy, plump pseudobulbs, and everything starts to shrivel and suck in and they just go down. Well, this one went down, but it didn't shrivel. It maintained good fat pseudobulbs, which is unusual, and then it pushed up a new growth that rotted. That was this one. Yeah, I thought, yeah, here we go, and I've killed another one. And then it pushed out another new growth, which is very weak, but nonetheless hung in there, and has still got its leaves. And now it's pushing up another new growth. And in addition to that, although the new growth here, the previous one, because we now have another new one, is here, the roots went round the pot and then down. So the new roots are over this side of the pot, even though they've come off from here. So what we've got now is a new little growth, a previous growth that's not going to mature a decent bulb. That's it. That's as good as it's going to get. But it's got leaves on. That's the important bit. It is not leafless. And we now have another new growth to see what that can do. And although it's a bit squashed between pseudo bulbs, it'll push. It will force this one out of the way if it has to make room. And then we'll see what we get. If that new growth attempts to bloom, I'm going to stop it, despite these blooms being gorgeous. If it wasn't for the blooms, that would have been in the bin. Recycling bin, of course. I'm not talking about dusty bin. Recycling bin, where all my green stuff has to go nowadays. Right, although we've looked at this because it came into bloom, my Ceologyne nitida, whatever you want to call it, is worth a point because it's an unusual. Now this might be common amongst Ceologynes, but I've only got a couple, and I only look up the details on the ones I've got, and it's a reasonable sized genus. There's a lot of them, but this one grows weird. As far as I'm concerned, I've got nothing else that does this. Have I? I might have. I don't know. Oh, fragrance is gorgeous. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous with a hint of something you'd rather wasn't there that you can't name. And that's my best way of describing it. It's sweet. It's gorgeous, but somewhere in there my nose is detecting something that it would be better if it wasn't there. But I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but it's a strange fragrance, but very nice. But what happens here is you get what looks like a new growth comes up, and then it gets to a point and it stops, and the spike comes out the top. And then when the spike's finished, it carries on growing and grows leaves. Now I haven't got any other orchids that grow like that. Not even close. So it's unusual. And that's my little plant, and I'll emphasise little. If you can ever go to Rivlington on an open day, the Rivlington School Orchid Project, when you go into their greenhouses, the first, where you go in, the entrance is their cold greenhouse. And in there is their Ceologyne nitida. It's in some sort of basket thing that's about 1 metre square, and it's gone. The plant has enveloped the whole basket, has grown over the sides, piled on top. I don't think I've ever seen such a massive orchid. And when it's in bloom, you walk in the door and go, ah, and your eyes start watering. It's so powerful, the fragrance. So that's why that one got looked at again. Unusual growth habit. Right, this is my little Dendrobium harveyanum, a plant that was lost, and I managed to get a kiki to grow. It's still not growing. I've just had to take a spike off of this, stupid thing. But it is growing some roots. We do have some roots in the pot, whereas it was almost rootless. It's been stalled for a long time now. This was a gorgeous plant, a star performer, beautiful blooms. That's what's left. But what's left is not dead. There's no sign of life at the base yet. We shall see, but it has a root system now. It has the ability to recover. If ever I see a good one of those going, I'll get it, because that was one of my favourite dendrobiums. In bloom, on and off throughout the season. You can't ask for more than that from a dendrobium. A lot of them bloom for about 10 days, once a year, unless you're flipping lot. Now I've lost the name for this one, but it's in my notes. A weird plant, very weird plant. I had it as a mature plant for some time, and it would not grow from the base. It would only grow kikis. It never, ever grew from the base. And I ended up giving it away. But I kept a kiki. And blow me, that seems to be attempting to grow normally now because it's pushed up a new growth from the base. That's grown a lot of roots and is still growing some new ones. So I don't know what it's going to do next. The only reason I've kept it is I like the blooms. And it seems to be settling down and starting to grow normally. Maybe, possibly. You never know. And then this was one of the little big box orchids that was not happy. Still isn't. but at least it survived. And it has grown a few roots, not many. It's currently growing a few more. And this is a strange one. This is in fact an antelope type. It's the only one I've got. I did have a beauty that died on me. But this is Jairak Firethorne Brownie. Firethorne? Yeah, sorry, the tag's faded. You know my pens. But no sign of new growth yet. I'm living in hope. Again, don't give up on a dendrobium. But it's got a long way to go before it becomes anything. This is the last one of my moniliform seedlings left in the original pot that I was given them in. Several have gone to other people. 2 got mounted, which I'm keeping. They're growing on reasonably well. This is the only one left in the original pot, and it's left in its pot because it was in totally different media to all the other seedlings. This one's got chopped up cocoa fibre in it. But it's currently pushing up a new growth here, which is growing, and it's growing new roots throughout the pot. So coming on quite nicely. And the last one in this little set that lives on that top shelf there is Precious. This is Odontoglossum crispum, which is now called something entirely different, but not in this place, it's not. Virtually lost, and is still not classed as out of the woods yet, but what it's done, it rotted its pseudobulbs basically. I rescued the only one that was firm, which it still is. Pushed out a new growth, promptly rotted off. Started another one which managed to hang in there enough to push on. It's not going to get any bigger than that. That's what the pseudobulb should look like, or bigger. That's what this one looks like. But it's hung on to its leaves. The marks on the leaves are where it got scale. Didn't have a lot going for it, this. Rotten pseudobulbs and scale. But it's hung in there. It's currently branching its existing root system. So it has all the signs of starting a new growth very soon. That's precious to me, that one. I don't want to lose that. And that, scanning around quickly in case there's anything lurking. As I said, it was quite possible I was going to miss some. It was also, that wind's getting up. Great. We've now, the weather's broken. We've now got rain forecast virtually every day at some point. So, at one day this week, we've got heavy showers with thunder and lightning, possibly. You know what it's like when they forecast rain. Sometimes it just seems to go round where I live. I mean, I've known Poole be flooded, and we got blue sky here. It's only about 5 miles away. So we've got a strange little climate here. It's the way the coastline's shaped. Anyway, so that's all of the pots now. Some will have been missed, not many. Some may have been done twice, not many. My memory's not that good. I can't be bothered to go back and watch all the other videos that I've done to work it out. So just accept that some may have been missed, not many, and some may have been duplicated. That leaves one more video to do, which will probably be early next week. And that is the rest of the mounts, basically. And there aren't a lot more. It's mainly the big lot down through there, the ones that are most awkward to film. Many of which are in bloom at the moment, so that'll be a nice little video to look at those, and we'll go from there. So thanks for watching these. I hope you're enjoying them. They are a bit of an effort on my part with the pop-ups for the names, blooms where I've got them. If a plant in this type of video goes past with just a name and the bloom doesn't pop up, it means either it hasn't bloomed for me, or it has and I didn't take a picture. That does happen occasionally. But yeah, so if there was no bloom, it just means I haven't got a picture for one reason or the other. Otherwise, you will have had a name and a picture on each one. So they are a bit of a faff for me to do, but they're once a year. It's not a big deal. And I don't mind. I enjoy giving my plants that closer look and talking out loud. And every now and again you find a spike that you didn't notice, or a bud. Where did that come from? Sort of thing. Anyway, thanks for dropping by. See you next time.